we are dealing with vascular retinopathies. So diseases related to vessels. In that we covered diabetic retinopathy. We also covered hypertensive retinopathy. Now there is one more clinical entity, that is vascular occlusions related to retina. That is important clinical uh, condition which has a lot of systemic associations with that. Now considering the vascular occlusions of the retina, these vascular occlusions of the retina are divided into two parts. One is venous occlusions and other is arterial occlusions. Now in venous occlusions, veins or its branches are occluded. So venous occlusions deal with central retinal vein occlusion or branch retinal vein occlusion. And second type is arterial occlusions, where arterioles are occluded. That is again subdivided into central retinal artery occlusion or branch retinal arterial occlusion. So these occlusions, they form important causes of vision loss, which are generally painless sudden vision loss, and the patient presents with sudden vision loss. So that from that point of view, you must know the diseases. Secondly, most of them have systemic associations. So here not only ophthalmologist comes into play, but the treating physician also will have to find out the central cause and deal with that. From that point of view, you must know the vascular occlusions. Today we are going to deal with venous occlusions. Venous thrombosis is the main pathophysiology. So there occurs thrombosis. So as you know, thrombosis is generally, it occurs in elderly people, and those patients are having some cardiovascular disease. Now in the case of venous thrombosis, obstruction usually occurs in the central vein, just behind the lamina cribrosa. It is very important to know the site of the obstruction, because that site will decide the fundus picture and vision loss. So in case of thrombosis, it is generally central retinal vein, and the location of obstruction is just behind the lamina cribrosa. Now why this particular location? Because at this particular site, it is seen that the vein is having common adventitious sheath with the overlying artery. So the two are affected by the same sclerotic process. So there is central retinal artery, below that there is central retinal vein, both share a common adventitious sheath. Now there occurs sclerotic process involving both. So overlying arteriole becomes thickened because of the sclerosis like a cord, and because there is common adventitious sheath, it presses over the underlying vein, and because of this underlying vein gets mechanically compressed. Also secondary endothelial changes start in the underlying vein lining of the endothelium, which leads to occlusion of the central retinal vein. Now at other times in arteriosclerotic patients, the block may be peripheral. Other possibility, block in the periphery. So usually at a bifurcation where a sclerosed artery crosses a vein, an event which particularly prone to occur in the superior temporal vein. When we see branch vein occlusion, the same mechanism plays at the peripheral level, where the arteriole presses over the underlying vein and branch gets blocked, causing STVRVO, that is superior temporal venous occlusion. Now young people, when we come across thrombosis, it is not the thrombosis which is the causative factor, but it is due to infective periphlebitis. So there is a periphlebitis or infective element involving the vein, which leads to occlusion of the branch of the central retinal vein. So this type of process you see in disease called Eales disease. Thrombosis may also be due to local causes such as chronic glaucoma. Other important local disease which causes central retinal occlusion is glaucoma. So this is a central local cause which leads to the thrombosis, and thrombosis lead to CRV occlusion. Second most is orbitocellulitis or facial erysipelas. So in this slide what we have learned, thrombosis is the cause in elderly people. In case of CRVO, it is the post lamina site where the vein gets thrombosed. Peripherally, it is generally superior temporal vein which is commonly involved. Young people, cause is not thrombosis, it is infective periphlebitis. The cause is the disease is Ehl's disease, and other commonest cause. Now in case of elderly people, when we talk about CRV occlusion, we are generally having hypertension as the cause of CRV occlusion, followed by diabetes. So if you are asked etiology of CRV occlusion, in the elderly people it is hypertension, diabetes, followed by, in young people it is periphlebitis, but in old people it is glaucoma, open angle glaucoma, orbital cellulitis and facial erysipelas are the causative factors for venous thrombosis. Now what is the pathogenesis? Is venous occlusion, which leads to elevation of the venous and capillary pressure. There is stagnation of blood flow which leads to retinal hypoxia. This leads to damage to the capillary endothelial cells, extravasation blood constituents and liberation of VEGF factor. We will repeat this. Initial event is occlusion of the vein because of the pressure from the above arteriole. Now occlusion leads to elevation of the venous and capillary pressure. This in turn leads to stagnation of blood flow. Stagnation of blood flow will lead to hypoxia. Hypoxic retina is a causative factor for damage to the endothelial cells. This leads to extravasation of blood constituents, and hypoxic retina leads to factor of VEGF, liberation of VEGF. Risk factors, we are talking about CRV occlusion. Age more than 65 years, hypertension most prevalent in patients with BRVO, hyperlipidemia, diabetes mellitus, glaucoma and ocular hypertension, patients on oral contraceptive pills, young females. You must think of history of taking OCPs if they present with retinal vein occlusion, and smoking. These are the risk factors. Some uncommon risk factors include dehydration, myeloproliferative disorder like myeloma, polycythemia, thrombophilia, hyperhomocystinemia, antiphospholipid antibody syndrome, factor V Leiden mutation. Then inflammatory diseases where there is periphlebitis leading to occlusion includes Beckett syndrome, sarcoidosis, Wegener's granulomatosis, orbital diseases just like we discussed orbital cellulitis, and chronic renal failure. So as I already told you, all vascular occlusions need systemic assessment. So though patient presents with sudden vision loss, you have to address that problem, but simultaneously you will get systemic assessment of the patient done and start systemic treatment. That is very important. So detection and management of associated systemic disease is aimed principally at reducing risk of future vascular occlusive events, both ocular and systemic. What we mean by this? What we mean by this is, if right eye suffers from CRV occlusion, if the causative factor is systemic, his left eye is vulnerable for occlusion also. So immediately we will have to do workup and address the systemic problem so that we are preventing the similar episode happening in the other eye. That is one. Secondly, these patients are also prone for occlusion elsewhere in the body. So if we, like myocardial infarction, like stroke, these patients are prone for. So we have to address the systemic factors, start treatment so that we prevent future episode happening in the other eye or elsewhere in the body. That is why systemic assessment is extremely important. So what we are going to see, blood pressure assessment, in that add ECG recording, ESR or plasma viscosity, total blood count, random blood glucose, random total and high density lipoprotein cholesterol, that we call it as lipid profile. Then plasma protein electrophoresis to find out dysproteinemias like multiple myelomas. Other tests, urea, electrolyte, creatinine to find out the renal status because patient is having hypertension, and chronic renal failure is also a rare cause of retinal vein occlusion. Thyroid function testing, higher prevalence of thyroid disease seen in RVO patients. Electrocardiography to find out left ventricular hypertrophy associated with hypertension. So in your answer you must say the drugs, systemic investigations advised to the patient, which are enumerated in this slide. Selected patients will need chest X-ray. This is to find out sarcoidosis, tuberculosis, left ventricular hypertrophy. C-reactive protein is when we talk about periphlebitis or infection or inflammation causing occlusion in young patients. C-reactive protein is important. Homocysteine, again to exclude hyperhomocystinemia, for which there is reasonable evidence of increased RVO risk. If there is hyperhomocystinemia, patients are prone for RVO, so we'll have to find out homocysteine level. Thrombophilia, autoantibodies like rheumatoid factor, anti-nuclear antibody, anti-DNA antibody, anti-neutrophil cytoplasmic antibody, ANCA. Then serum angiotensin converting enzyme, ACE, which is seen in sarcoidosis. Treponemal serology, because treponema infection may cause periphlebitis. Then carotid duplex imaging to exclude mimicking ocular ischemic syndrome. So carotid Doppler to rule out thromboembolism. Now there are 2, 3, 4 varieties you must remember of venous occlusion. One is impending central vein occlusion, then proper central vein occlusion, its types ischemic, non-ischemic, branch vein occlusion, and hemiretinal vein occlusion. So first we will see impending vein occlusion. It occurs in younger patients. Symptoms may be absent or consist of minor transient blurring that is characteristically worse on waking. So what we label it this as amaurosis fugax. Then on examination there is mild retinal venous dilatation and tortuosity with relatively few scattered dot and blot hemorrhages. Mild macular edema may be there. Fluorescent angiography generally demonstrates impaired retinal circulation, and prognosis is usually good, but a proportion will deteriorate to ischemic CRV. So all the described features are seen here. There is mild retinal edema, there is dilatation and tortuosity of the veins, and but you see hemorrhages are not very marked and there is no much papilla. Second is venous stasis retinopathy, which is non-ischemic CRVO. Venous stasis, as the name suggests, instead of blockage of the artery or vein, there is stasis of the blood column. So venous stasis retinopathy is a well-defined clinical entity that consists of unilateral disc edema. So it involves one eye only with variable changes in young healthy adults. So it affects young people and there are variable changes, but there is unilateral papilledema. Individual is usually 20 to 40 years of age. Initial symptom is vague unilateral fogginess of vision. The retinal vascular abnormality may be minimal or present as markedly engorged, dilated, tortuous veins and hemorrhages. Acuity generally is good and vitreous hemorrhage is never present. And neuroophthalmological examination is negative. Fluorescent angiography shows venous stasis, that is sluggishness of circulation with delayed venous drainage, but no block as such is seen in FFA. Disease safely followed without neurodiagnostic studies. No need of MRI CT in a healthy young adult. No abnormal systemic findings you expect. Steroids are withheld unless macular edema. If there is no macular edema, no need of steroids. Fundus picture stimulates central venous thrombosis and results from phlebitis affecting the CRV within the optic nerve head. So it may mimic thrombotic CRVO, but actually it is affecting young people, and the cause is generally phlebitis of the vein within the optic nerve head. Now, essential difference between venous stasis and CRV thrombosis is that in venous stasis there is stagnation of circulation, no block of the circulation results, there is no ischemia of the retina, in contrast to central venous thrombosis. So this is a milder condition. It is the stagnation or stasis of the circulation is there. It affects young people. Vision is good. No need of central investigations, and fluorescent angiography shows stagnation or sluggishness of the circulation. In rarely you give steroid if there is macular edema. So this is about venous stasis retina. Coming to ischemic CRVO, this is a very serious condition. Sight is much impaired, so there is gross reduction of vision. The reduction of vision may not be very rapidly happening as in CRA occlusion, but there is a gross reduction of vision which is counting finger to 660 or 636. Pupil shows RAPD. This is very important. Pupil shows relative apparent pupillary defect. All the veins of the retina are enormously engorged. So you see engorgement of the retinal veins, and they are tortuous, and retina is covered with hemorrhages. So you see all retina covered with hemorrhages, and tortuous new vessels are seen. They are over the optic disc, which is known as neovascularization of the disc. Sometimes collateral circulation opens up and there will be seen new vessels over the retina. The affected retina becomes atrophic with fine pigmentary. If the process continues, there develops atrophy with fine pigmentary changes. Prognosis is rendered worse in a considerable number of cases due to secondary glaucoma, due to neovascularization at the angle of the anterior chamber in 2 to 3 months. This is called as 100-day glaucoma. Ischemic CRVOs in number of cases develops a neovascularization of the iris and neovascularization of the angle in 100 days or 2 to 3 months, leading to neovascular glaucoma, which is known as 100-day glaucoma. Now, branch vein occlusion, generally there is single branch of the central vein is blocked. Edema and hemorrhages are limited to the area supplied by the vein. Mainly it is the superiotemporal. In this case, visual defect is partial but not exactly sectorial, as in the case of occlusion of central retinal artery or branch retinal artery. Prognosis is better here. Generally, superiotemporal vein is blocked frequently. The importance of this is as it drains macular edema develops and vision is affected quite significantly. So my question here is, why in case of branch retinal vein occlusion it is superiotemporal vein which is commonly affected? So both UG and PG students are supposed to answer this. Why STBRVO is quite common, and why STBRVO is associated with macular edema, and why STBRVO needs prompt management. So eyes with intact or complete perifoveal capillary arcade have better prognosis than eyes with incomplete arcades, as demonstrated by angiography. And chances of secondary glaucoma because of branch thrombosis is extremely rare. Hemiretinal vein occlusion, I leave this for PG students to answer this. UG students can in short describe what is hemiretinal, but PG students are supposed to answer what is hemiretinal vein occlusion, how it presents. So I drop this, I will go into the details. Now coming to management of the central retinal vein occlusion, as I told, the management involves central, systemic and local. So control of systemic risk factors, Mainly like investigations we have seen, refer patient to physician, find out the systemic reason of vein occlusion and start treatment of the particular disease which is found. For this I ask my PG students to find out different studies which are involved in CRV occlusion and what they recommend as far as the systemic investigations protocol they have set in of different investigations and different systemic management protocols advised by them. Treatment and of complications of CRVO. If there is macular edema, treatment is generally indicated for visual acuity worse than 6/9 and or with significant central macular thickening on OCT, but unlikely to be benefit if 6/120 or worse. So it means ischemic CRVO has worse prognosis as compared to non-ischemic. So treatment advice is intravitreal, anti-VEGF or dexamethasone implant are the current standard of treatment. So when we talk about macular edema in CRVO, we never talk about laser treatment. No use of laser treatment in macular edema because of CRVO. But nowadays we start with anti-VEGFs or dexamethasone implant for macular edema because of CRVO. Here I expect PG students to submit answer of fluorescein angiography pattern seen with CRV occlusion and OCT picture with CRV occlusion and also different types of intravitreal steroid treatments available. In that is included the depo-steroid preparation in the form of biodegradable implant which is to be implanted in intravitreal cavity and other anti-VEGF details to be submitted as answer of this. Now, what is the role of laser in CRV occlusion? It is only when there develops neovascularization. So we need to do extensive follow-up of these cases, and if we see any evidence of neovascularization, either neovascularization of the iris or angle neovascularization, then the treatment advised is pan-retinal photocoagulation. But I expect here the answer of recent management of neovascular glaucoma for the PG students. How will you manage a neovascular glaucoma if it is because of CRV occlusion? Then intravitreal anti-VEGF injections are commonly administered every 6 weeks until the eye stabilizes. Vitreous hemorrhage may respond to intravitreal anti-VEGF. Definitive treatment is with vitrectomy and endolism. Here my next question to PG students is, what different treatment modalities which have been tried, which include surgical treatments for central retinal vein occlusion, which have been tried so far?